Clinton Miner here from Sage Sawtooth Bushcraft. I want to share with you the next in the series on Light My Fire, and I want to just talk about the basics of flint and steel. Now, a lot of people come through our booth when we're selling our Fat Boy Fatwood ferrocerium rod and mistakenly think that ferrocerium rod is a flint and steel, because in normal parlance that's what most people call it. But flint and steel goes way back before that. We're going to talk about the basic flint and steel today, and then we'll show you some variations on that in future videos. One of the things that shows just how prevalent this really is, this misconception of what a ferrocerium rod is and what a flint and steel is, comes with the movie or the series that's out called The Chosen. It's about the life of Christ, and there's a episode in it where Thomas, I believe it is an architect. He's designed a building. The building has fallen down, killed a bunch of people, tied back to another story that Christ talked about. And he's despondent. He's just really upset. He goes off by himself. I think he's thinking potentially even about suicide. And he takes the drawings of this building that he's built, and he pulls them out, tears them up. Obviously, he's going to burn them, and pulls out a ferrocerium rod and throws sparks onto that paper and starts that on fire. And there's a couple problems with that. The first problem is that it's pretty hard to get paper to light when you're throwing sparks on it, even from a ferrocerium rod. But the other problem that comes with that is that a ferrocerium rod, that whole concept of a fire steel, the ferrocerium rod, didn't start until right around the turn of the 1900s. So a little bit of an anachronism, I think that's what that's called. And so we're going to talk about what a real flint and steel is. I have here in my hand the components of a flint and steel. I'm going to put them here under the close-up, and that is, I've got a piece of flint. It's just a piece of quartzite that is a type of stone that breaks, that's hard, and that will break with a sharp edge. And then a steel, which is just a piece of high carbon steel, and we'll show all kinds of high carbon steel. You can buy these online, and they aren't terribly expensive. You can buy a set like this, and what you're going to do is, if you can see that this is throwing sparks as I do it. And I'm going to do it under the close-up here. What I'm getting are some sparks off from that. Now, the sparks that come off from this aren't nearly as hot as what comes off a ferrocerium rod. The ferrocerium rod is a mixture of ferro, which is iron. That's this high-carbon steel. High-carbon iron. Carbonized iron is steel. It has cerium, which is another metal that is very prone to oxidization, and what's happening when you're creating those sparks is it's interacting with the oxygen in the atmosphere, creating a chemical reaction and creating the heat. And then with that, they also mix some magnesium, which also helps it to burn even hotter. And that's why the sparks that come off from those ferrocerium rods, I can't remember, it's something between 1300 and 1700 degrees. They're very hot, maybe 1200 degrees, I'm not sure. The ones that come off from this, when I spark it, are about 600 or 700 degrees. So it's a very substantial difference. And the difference plays a substantial role in what we have to do to get a fire from this. We're going to go ahead and give that a try as we go ahead and do this. The flint throwing those sparks, in order to capitalize on that, we have to catch them on something. Those sparks have to catch on something that will continue or perpetuate that spark or that heat. And they aren't hot enough, for example, if I've got fatwood shavings, they aren't hot enough to ignite that fatwood shavings. At least that I've ever seen, no one that I've ever seen can get that to happen. There are very few things in nature that are just natural that you can get. False horseshoe fungus, which is a little tough to find in my area of the woods, although I do have some. We'll talk about some others. Milkweed ovum, some other things like that. But really what you need is charred material. And so what I have here is some charred cloth. I took an old pair of jeans, cut it up into chunks, and we made some charred cloth out of that. What that is simply we put that in an environment where without oxygen we are carbonizing this, and what that makes is something that will catch those sparks. What I'm going to do is place that along the edge of my flint. So you can see that I've got the flint sticking up just a little bit, and then that is along the edge of that flint. I'm going to take my steel then, and I'm going to create sparks. And the goal, not always terribly easy, is to have some of those sparks land on that charred material. Like that. And now you can see I've got a nice ember. Now that ember isn't going to get us a fire, but what we have to do now is we have what's called a bird's nest. I've got some old jute twine that I have pulled apart. We'll place that ember inside that jute twine and provide it with some oxygen. One of the things I learned is that if you hold it above your chin level, the chances of having to breathe too much smoke helps. Also, get any ambient wind that's coming behind you, so that's where that's going, and we'll just go ahead and go from there. Just like that, I got a fire. I've let that drop to the ground because I don't want to burn my fingers. I would have potentially put that into a fire where I had my tinder ready and gone forward with that. Now, we'll talk in future videos also not only about the flint and steels, the different types of flint and steel that you can use. We'll talk about the different types of char cloth you can use or charred material you can use. We'll look at some of the natural materials that you can gather in different environments and put the spark directly onto that natural material. And we will also look at different types of tinder material so that we don't have to carry around a little bundle of the jute twine that's been pulled apart, because you don't always have that. But that shows you the technique that our ancestors have been using literally for thousands of years to start fires, a way that is consistently available as long as you have a piece of high carbon steel and something that is sharp and hard that can take that edge, that being the flint, or we'll explore some other things that'll do that. But let's just say once again that knowing how to do this is a part of being prepared. Knowing how to choose that steel, high carbon steel versus stainless steel, for example, knowing how to char that material, and knowing how to have that tinder ready is part of that preparedness. And as we say here at Sage the Sawtooth Bushcraft, if you're prepared, you're never really lost. Thank you.